cricket world. Now the rule seems coming.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 49 of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. I'm your co-host, Mashal St. Patrick Hewitt, and you know who's with me.
Yep, Santoki back again, and Mash, this is an episode of mixed emotions for me. As a West Indies fan, we have a player who's produced outstanding performances across all formats. But as you know, CPL is here, and the same player we've got on literally single-handedly stopped Guyana Amazon Warriors winning the title in 2019 when he stumped Brandon King. So we've had good times and bad times, but Mash, the people can see him on the screen if you want to introduce him.
Indeed. Our guest today. So if again, as I always say, if you're watching on the visuals, you already know who it is and you're already excited. If you're listening on the audios, we have got, if I had to do a straw poll of current cricketers that everybody has been begging us to get on the show, Shai Hope would be number one. And we have him on the show today. Finally, all of those followers of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast who are always asking us questions about Shai Hope, today is your day. Today you finally get everything covered that you ever wanted covered with regards to Shai Hope. But let me hand over to the great man himself. Shai, how are you doing?
I'm great, man. It's a pleasure to be here. As you say, it's been a while, so just happy to be on the podcast.
Excellent. And of course, at the time of recording, for those who are listening, CPL is obviously underway, and we've got 3 different teams being repped in this episode today. Obviously, I'm representing the Talawars, Santoki, the Amazon Warriors, and of course, Shai plays for the Barbados Royals. Unfortunately for my for the other 2 on the show today, we know who's going to win this. It's going to be the Talawars, but you know, I'll be nice to them as we go through this particular episode and whatnot. But Santoki, do you want to kick off proceedings?
Yeah, so let's get into it. Where we ask all our guests, Shai, growing up, how did you get into cricket, and at what age did you think, okay, this is something I can make a career of?
Well, firstly, I guess a lot of it had to play with part of my brother and my father. I saw them playing cricket when I was a little boy, and I was like, what's this? What are you guys doing? So I always wanted to know what's going on. I was always interested from a young age. It got to the point where, because my father, he's a joiner. So basically anything with wood, he's good. So he actually made a small bat for me when I was young. And he threw a couple balls at me, and I hit them pretty well in his eyes, because I don't know. I can't remember back in the day. I have to go by his words. And he said, oh, this guy, let's see if he could, do something in the future. So it was always a case where I always loved the game. So from a young age, he just continued to encourage me. As I said, he would throw balls at me, and just something that from a young age that I really, really enjoyed and was very interested in. And again, as I said, my brother, who's also another professional cricketer, again, another big inspiration for me. So it was just nice to see how they enjoy the game and basically instill that onto me growing up.
Shai, obviously hailing from Barbados, the one thing that is clear about all Barbadian cricketers is the club system in Barbados is so entrenched. The school system in terms of cricket is so entrenched. It's not about pitting islands against islands, but I think when we look at the Caribbean islands, certainly the first class system is seen as the best in Barbados if you're gonna really be exposed to cricket. So we had Karl Mayers on last episode. Just talk to us about the club you were part of and your experiences growing up through school. Before you came over to the UK, obviously, your experiences growing up through school cricket, club cricket, etc.
Well, actually, the club I play for now is Pickwick Cricket Club. But growing up, I was part of the Wanderers Cricket Club junior program. So, it's been a bit of a both worlds, best of both worlds, as I say. Now, I remember a tour to England with the same Wanderers Cricket Club. As I said, is a lot of development that was going on there. Something that I would never regret going. I always enjoy the system that they had going on there. But as I said, no, I play for the Pickwick Club. So there's a big rivalry between Pickwick and Wanderers. So I'm always in the middle, but whoever I'm playing for, obviously I'm going to put my best foot forward for them. But there's always love both sides.
When you got your scholarship, now I'd like to think that most fans listen to this know you got a scholarship, but it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of people actually don't know. Even though it was spoken about and it was covered, it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of people are like, what, you got a scholarship to play in England? But Santoki and I and myself obviously both know you did, and we know a lot of the history behind that. But can you just explain to the listeners, to the viewers, whatever medium they're listening or watching on, how did the scholarship actually come about?
Well, I don't really want to call any names to get people in trouble, but what I can say though is Alan Wells, who was the director there at that point in time, he came to the Caribbean. I was doing some scouting. Now, initially, I wanted to go, look at my options overseas just to see what was there. And Graham Walker, who's a very great person that I hold dearly to my heart, we were looking at options to go overseas, and I think we first looked at Brentwood, which is in Essex. So it just so happened that the same time I was looking for those options, Alan was around. So I think they were scouting for someone else. As I said, I don't want to call any names to get in trouble. But it just so happened that everything was aligned at that present time. And as I said, like it just happened. So basically I was in the right place at the right time, and then everything worked out from there.
Were you wicket keeping while in Barbados, or was that something that you developed when you came over to England?
No, it was always wicket keeping, but I was doing everything in cricket. Like I said, when I was growing up, remember we have a Herman Griffith tournament, which is the primary school tournament. I would literally bowl my 5 overs and then go and wicket keep afterwards, because it was 25 overs a game. So I did everything basically growing up. The real reason why I'd say I got into keeping was because on the 13 trials, our national team, they usually section each player, well, the types of players, in the corners. So the batsman would go over there, the bowlers would go over there, and then the keepers would go over there. So I saw a bunch of bowlers over there, a bunch of batters over there, and I only saw 2 wicket keepers. I was like, well, maybe it must be a lot easier to make the team as a wicket keeper over there. So I decided let me just take it upon myself to try it and see what's going on. But it was always a big fan of wicket keeping. I always loved the being in the game all the time, because that's one part in the field where you have to be switched on regardless. And as I say, it was just like an executive decision I made when I was 11 years old. So yeah.
Are you? And this kind of jumps the gun a bit, so I don't want to go too in depth into it, and I want to come back to it later. But it's interesting that you say that, as far as you're concerned, you were wicket keeping from young, because as West Indian fans, we associate you with wicket keeping specifically. Obviously, you wicket keeping 20 over cricket. You're wicket keeping right now for Barbados in CPL, but you wicket keep in the ODI side. But in terms of white ball cricket, because even for Barbados, in terms of first class cricket, if you're available to play it, obviously Shane Dowrich is there. So how much white ball wicket keeping would you have done, and when would you have transitioned out of doing that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say that is a big difference. Obviously, the red ball would do a bit more in terms of movement, but at the end of the day, it's simple basics of play. You have to watch the ball into your hands. So it's almost just doing what you know, regardless of the format, regardless of what you're playing, when you're playing. So I don't think it's a big difference. No.
Okay. So we digress slightly, and obviously, like I say, you were talking about Alan Wells, and then you came over. What did you notice as the biggest difference when you got over to the UK? And obviously, you go through 2 years with your scholarship. What was the biggest difference you noticed from playing in Barbados to playing in the UK, or was it? Did you think this is all just much of a muchness? This is all relatively the same?
Well, there's a few things. Obviously, the cold. I've never experienced cold to be like that. When I went, would have been the beginning of September. Well, I think I went to the end of August to get myself prepared for the term. But even then, it was a bit chilly, something that I've never really been accustomed to. And then the system they have there, the school, the facilities are amazing. Like something that you would never really experience in Barbados, let alone the Caribbean, some places. So just being able to access certain things, you have indoor facilities, you can literally practice whenever you want. You have the dorm houses on the actual property, so it's like you wake up, you go to school, you can mesh the school with your cricket training. So everything was a big eye opener for me, and definitely a very good experience. But yeah, just the main thing is the cool, but then just the way how the system was set up there for you to really excel in the classroom and also on the cricket field.
Santoki, sorry.
Was there, so after your schooling, was there ever a temptation to sort of try and play for a county, try and get in the club set up here, or was it always the kind of thing to go back to the West Indies?
That's a tricky one. But yes, I did have the thoughts, I'm not gonna lie. Because I was always thinking about the system over in the UK, the county system I'm talking about. And I guess I got a taste of it at school because the facilities that I spoke about before and the way how things were. But my heart was always with West Indies cricket, that's the thing. So I did apply for some universities. I was accepted, but I made a decision to come back home and play in the regional under 19 tournament, which would have been played in the summertime. So I guess it worked out for the best. Seeing where I'm at present, so definitely don't regret it. But as I said, it's a thought that definitely went through my mind to stay and pursue university and then maybe some county cricket afterwards.
Yeah, go on, Mash.
I was going to jump the gun, Santoki. I'm trying to work out. So let me jump the gun. So Shai, that's all good and well. You telling us, well, you thought about it. That was then. I am surprised that you have not played county cricket at any point in time since, well, at all. You just haven't. And that was Santoki. I think that was like one of the questions we got about 1 million times. When is Shai going to play county cricket? When is he going to play county cricket? Has he not thought about playing county cricket? Even you and I have spoken about whether he's going to play county cricket or not. So Shai, forget when you were young. Surely this has been something that you must want to tick off and do at some point in your career.
Yeah, of course, definitely at the top of the list. But the biggest thing would be the time and the schedule. For West Indies cricket, we usually tend to have a lot of tours when you have the county season going on, and most teams don't necessarily sign for a short period of time. They normally want someone who can stay for an extended period in the season. So maybe that's why it didn't really work out. But I was always willing to play, always interested to play in the county setup, and even some in Australia as well. I always wanted to play cricket around the world and not just in the Caribbean. So it's definitely at the top of the list though.
Anyone who is listening to this who is an agent, come on now, come on. We've literally just opened up the door for you. Come on, get cracking. So it's Santoki.
Yeah, so you finish your schooling, you come back to regional cricket. You said you played the under-19s. I think you were 19 when you made your regional debut for the Barbados senior team. How difficult did you find the step up to that side?
Well, having been I was around the senior setup for a little while. Normally, you just tend to transition into, it's just practice sessions. But so I knew a lot of the guys. A lot of the guys were very welcoming. They were open to listen to the younger guys. So that part of the transition wasn't difficult. Again, it was about understanding how the cricket is being played, regardless of what level you're playing. Like the basics still apply. So they kind of highlighted it. I'm talking about the senior guys in the team. They basically highlighted that don't stray away from what you know. Yes, it's a different level. They might have less bar balls. Things may be a bit more intense. But nevertheless, it's still cricket. So you don't have to overthink it too much. But again, the step up wasn't too much of a challenge, especially regional I'm talking about when I first came into the team, because again, the local cricket that we play against most of those guys anyway. So I've had a taste of what it's like to be at the next level. So they just kind of made the transition a lot easier.
Who were the sort of the key senior players or players who kind of helped you during that period? I know Kirk Edwards was your captain when you first came in. Was there anyone specifically who kind of helped you out then?
You just called him name. He was and still is one of the biggest mentors that I have. And then you can never forget my brother. And when he basically did all the hard yards for me to just follow in his footsteps. So those were the two guys that I really looked up to. And the first time I came into the team, Jason Holder was actually my roommate because we played a Tri-Nation series in Trinidad. So those three guys were the ones who really, made me feel comfortable and got me into the swing of things and understood how the cricket really works at that level.
So we fast forward now, 2 years later, you're making your debut for West Indies cricket. I think you put a big score against the Windward Islands. Then not long after, they called you up for your debut at Bridgetown. Was that a surprise to you? Was it something you felt you were prepared for, making that jump up to international cricket?
Honestly, I thought it was a quick call up. It was a bit of a surprise because that same season I scored my first class 50, first class 100, and my first class double century in literally the same season. So as I said, it was new, very new to cricket, very new to that level, and then being called up. Obviously, I'm happy, I'm excited. I always wanted to play for West Indies, but it was a bit of a surprise. Looking back, obviously, it wasn't as ready as I thought I would have been.
Yeah.
But that's all part of it, just trying to gain experience as you go along.
You talked about the transition to regional cricket not being so tough because of the club cricket and you used to being around those players. How did you find the step up then between regional and international?
Pretty similar in a sense, because like I said, cricket, it doesn't really change too much in terms of what the basics are. Now, what I noticed was that the consistency with the bowlers you can definitely tell the gap between that and regional cricket. The intensity, the way how, just they go about the game, the preparation, the meetings, the in-depth analysis, and everything. So it was just a bit of a eye-opener for me, and you can definitely see the change and the difference from the first class to international. So yeah.
Before we go to Mash, just one more thing so your debut at Bridgetown 2015. When we spoke to Darren Bravo, he said a problem with the West Indies side in the past few years is the lack of experienced players in their 30s and mid-30s. It's a young team. It has been for the past few years. Obviously, when you played your first test, it was the last ever appearance of Shivnarayan Chanderpaul, and you also had Marlon Samuels and Danish Ramdin in the side. Did any of those veteran players sort of help you out specifically when you made your debut?
Yeah, well, they all were welcoming. Again, I only played one game with Shiv, but I would have loved to play a couple more. He kind of highlighted the little things that he would need to focus on at this level. He was the main one who said not to focus on what you don't know, as in literally just bring what you've learned from over the years into here. Trust your skills, trust why you're here, because you've been picked for a reason. So that's basically what he was trying to get into my ears.
Now, this is interesting to me, and this is the one question I've always wanted to ask if I ever spoke to you, Shai, and Santoki's alluded to it. So obviously you made your debut, and you've said that it was a bit of a surprise that you got it so quickly, but obviously you got a debut for West Indies. You're not going to turn that down. But when you debuted as an opener, and I always found that odd. I missed, I'm not even going to lie to you, I missed the fact that you had debuted versus England, because I started paying attention to you properly in the West Indies team after that, when it was Australia and then Sri Lanka. And I'd spoken to a few people, and I was like, how comes Shai is playing as an opener? Now, obviously, our last test series, not versus Pakistan, but South Africa, you were back in the side briefly. Obviously, there was a bit concussions and this, that, and the other, but you were back in the side primarily as an opener again. But in between all that, you were back in three. When you're playing for Barbados, you're not playing as an opener. So I want your take on it. Now, I know you're going to say you'll play wherever you're picked to play. I get that. But in an ideal world, where would you play in a red ball team if you could pick your position?
Plain and simple, number 4. That's
I
if
knew
I'm
it.
not wicketkeeping.
Mm.
So if I'm wicketkeeping, then obviously I'll bat a bit lower, maybe 5, 6.
Mm.
But ideally, as you say, in an ideal world, I would say number 4.
So when you debuted as an opener, did you not find that odd?
Like I said, you were the one who said if you're picked to bat anywhere that you play, like you're playing for West Indies, so
Yeah.
it's just an opportunity. Yes, it was a bit surprising. I wasn't expecting it initially. So to do it against 2 of the best opening bowlers in world cricket would have been a bit of a shock to me. But it was something that opened up my eyes. It was like, yeah, I'm ready for the challenge. But yeah, it was different. I wasn't expecting it. But as you said, in the ideal world, I'll probably go a 2 down.
Right, interesting. So you obviously, like you say, you debuted, and then it took a while. With all due respect, it took a while for it to click for you. And we're talking red ball cricket. We'll get to white ball. What we'll be talking all day about white ball, but it took a while to click for you in red ball cricket. And the thing is, what Santoki and I always joke about is on this side of the Atlantic, certainly in the UK, nobody is ever going to stop talking about your 2 centuries at Headingley. Like, people are still talking about that. What is it now? 4 years later. But I always laugh about it because I actually think a more important innings for you was the 90 against Pakistan at home. When you hit that 90, was that the moment you felt I've cracked it, or did it come earlier for you? Or was it only when you got those 2 centuries at Headingley? When was the moment you thought, I'm here now. I know my game?
I actually agree with you with the Pakistan game. That's the one that I really felt like, yes, this is kind of the strategy I need to go forward with to be successful at this level. Obviously, it was a home test match as well, so playing in front of my family and friends, it meant even more. So it was like yes, this is it moment. And then going on from there, the next series would have been against England. So from there, things just started to click a bit more. And yeah, that was it. But I think initially it would have been that Pakistan series, that same innings.
I'm almost loath to talk about the England, the 2 centuries, but we have to, because how can we not? So I'm going to just try and approach it just differently from how you've been asked so many questions about it in the past. But the 2nd century, forget the first one. Okay, so you make your 147. Now the chase when you made the 118, unbeaten 118. At that point, at what point in that innings was it? I guess what I'm getting at is, was it before you even came out to bat? Were you already thinking, I'm not getting out today? Like, I'm always intrigued with cricketers at what point in a key innings where they're like, it doesn't matter what you do. I'm on fire today. No one's getting me out. Well, did you have that with that second one of the second one of the centuries?
Funny enough, I would say after the very first ball I faced. No,
Okay.
I always have. I think any professional athlete would have this mindset. Whenever you go to perform, you expect to do your best and you expect to be the best that you can be. But in that particular moment, I was like, I have to stay here for the end. We have to win this test match. Regardless of what's happening, we have to win this game. And it just felt like everything was just clicking at that point in time. The ball was coming off the bat nicely. Things were flowing. Craig was getting the momentum, relieving some stress off of me as well. So everything just happened in that present moment. And as I said, it just clicked that day. And after that first ball I faced, I was like, yeah, we have to do this one. We have to win this game, especially after the previous game we were hammered. So there's no other way. And
obviously, history was written. You did what you did. By the end of the year, I think you were named one of the Wisdom Cricketers of the Year. Everything came that year for you. And when Santoki and I were talking about this kind of like podcast episode and interview beforehand, one thing that Santoki said was, how much pressure did you feel after that? Now, you may well say no, it was fine, but when you do something like that, and I guess Karl Mayers would be an example. When you do with his 200 in Bangladesh, when you do something as a West Indian cricketer, it's not just noticed in the Caribbean; it's noticed around the whole world because of how iconic West Indies cricket is. Did you feel any pressure to have to? Did you feel like I am now the guy that everyone's going to be looking at to make runs no matter what?
You would feel some pressure. I'm not gonna lie. But the thing about it is that when you step onto the field, you don't really be studying those things. You just study your process. I study my game plan, whatever I need to do on that particular day. But it's more so, I guess you can feel the pressure a lot more when you're just in your own time, whether you're back in a hotel room, just relaxing. You say, okay, a lot of thoughts cross your mind, a lot of things happen, things that you can't necessarily control as well. But when you cross the line, I don't really be studying those things, that's the truth. But one thing I've noticed is that you are a victim of your own success. So the more runs that you score, the more people expect you to score and emulate that every single time you go to bat. So that in itself is a bit of pressure, not gonna lie. But like I said, whenever I cross the line, I'm always backing myself to perform. So I don't really study what happened in the past or what needs to happen in the future.
Yeah, so we're gonna digress a bit. So obviously, at this point, after Headingley, particularly in England, because you scored it here, people had sort of boxed you in as a classic Test player who was going to revive West Indies in Test cricket single-handedly. But at the same time, you were making inroads in ODI cricket. I think 2018 would have been a year for you, a specific year when you hit 123 not out against India, for instance, in that tied game, and you were excelling in white ball cricket. Did you make any changes to your technique at that point in terms of being successful in white ball cricket?
Honestly, none that I would say. If I know over years, the technique would change, things would start to come into a game that you didn't have before, but I wouldn't say something specific that I tried to change. It's more of a mindset that I was trying to enhance. So things like trying to limit dot balls, trying to find boundary options, those types of things that I would try to get into my game a lot more, because my role was obviously to keep the innings together, keep wickets in hand, and obviously give us the launching pad at the back end. But I was always trying to find ways to improve, that is less dot balls, more boundary options, whatever the case may be. So I wouldn't say there's anything technical in particular, but probably more of a mindset and process.
What's interesting is a lot of your big scores have come against Bangladesh. I think you got 2 centuries. You hit another century against India in Chennai. You hit 1 against Afghanistan. Is there anything specific about Asian subcontinental conditions which sort of suit your game? Because a lot of batsmen obviously struggle there, but you seem to thrive.
Well, I honestly think that the pitches are lovely. The outfields are very fast. I like to stroke the ball. I'm a time of the cricket ball. So if I can just put my bat on it, get into the gap and get 4, then I'm living. Whereas some parts of the world, especially Caribbean, you have to hit the ball twice as hard to get a boundary, or even 2 sometimes. So as I said, the pitches that we played on in Asia have been very good for batting. So I guess I utilized it. But the main things for me would have been the outfields, because the bowling would always be good. It's international cricket, the bowling will always be decent. So it's just about capitalizing on those good pitches and the fast outfields whenever you get them.
This is quite interesting to me, Shai, and I'm gonna admit something to you now. When you got into the ODI side and you started doing well, Shai, I'm going to admit to you, I was cussing, But let me explain why I was cussing. Because initially, in your ODI career, I thought your strike rate was too low. Initially, I want to point out that I said initially, because I fully accept that your role in the side right now, as far as we're concerned, you are the go-to player in our ODI side. But initially, when you got in, did you ever feel like, okay, I'm taken to this white ball game. I know my game. I'm pretty much can be trusted to get a score. But were you ever hearing noise about, but Shai needs to bat a higher strike rate because this is ODI cricket and so on and so forth? Did you ever get anybody saying that?
Anybody? Me, everybody.
Okay.
so basically that was coming from all angles, left, right, center, everywhere. But the biggest thing was, like I told you, the role, that was my role. So therefore, as long as the people in the dressing room, the selectors, the coach, captain, the players in the team understood what I'm doing, it doesn't really matter what people on the outside think, because they don't necessarily know the game plan. So it's not up to them to tell me how to play or tell us how to play.
Yeah.
It's about trying to find that team formula to win a game. And we just tried that formula to see if it can click, see if things can happen. But like I told you, it's about trying to find ways to increase that. So it's not that I'm just trying to keep the innings together. I'm trying to keep the innings together, but still keep it at a decent tempo. Why not? Well, maximizing every delivery that I get instead of just batting for a period of time.
But so I would say the reason I said initially is because I would say it's interesting because I've noticed within the last, let's just pick 2 years, but it's probably longer, that you're still playing a very similar role, but your strike rate has I think it's massively increased from the early days. Now, what would you say is you might say you haven't noticed it, but what would you say would be the reasoning behind that then? Is it that you're just more comfortable in your game, or is it the game plan now, or whatever it might be? Because it is now not uncommon to watch you play for the ODI side, and I'm expecting no matter what innings you're playing, you're going at, depending on what the pitch is saying, because it does actually depend on the track, but generally speaking now, you're going at high 80s, low 90s, sometimes run a ball, whatever it might be. Obviously, it helps that you've got Evan at the other end if he's playing and so on and so forth. But is this something that you've just developed as your game has gone on?
It was a conscious effort. Like I said, we have discussions amongst the team to find out what's the best way forward for the team to excel. And we were always trying to find ways to mesh, as I said, my role with a bit more aggression, if you want to call it that. So over a period of time, it was just about taking a bit more risk, but obviously calculated risk. So therefore, we'd make sure that we take it from practice into the game. So it's not a case where they're just telling me to get my strike rate up. Strike rate up doesn't mean hitting 4s and 6s. It just means, as I said, hitting the ball into gaps, more or less dot balls. So over that period of time, it was just about transitioning from maybe more dot balls into 1s, 2s, the odd boundary, finding a boundary option, having those things in your mind to know, okay, when a bowler's on, let me see if I can take him down this over, put him under pressure, captain may have to change him, bring back one of the main bowlers, have a less a part-timer coming in at the depth. Like those things just have to play a part when it comes to building an innings. So it was a period of time, and I just said, okay, making a conscious effort to increase the strike rate, and finding ways to score, finding ways to get singles, 2s, boundaries.
And this leads me on, actually. It's a question from Sean Yearwood on Twitter. He said, is there a big difference in how you approach batting if you've already kept for 50 overs in the first innings?
Honestly, no. My mindset will still remain the same. And I think that's why we train so hard on a daily basis to make sure whatever we need to do, that we can do it at the best of our ability. Obviously, you will be more fatigued because as a batsman, I always love to bat first because that's when I'm going to be most fresh. But my game style, because I love to run between the wickets. I love my quick singles. I love to push hard into the field. So regardless if I keep 50 overs or not, I'm still going to do the same thing because I'm trying to get as many runs as possible. So just get the ice baths ready, get the massage tablets ready, get a good food ready, and get some sleep early. That's all. So just have to make sure my recovery is good because I'm going to be pushing 110% whenever I'm on the field.
Do you know what, Santoki? Before you ask Shai the next question, is actually crazy, because Shai averages over 50 in ODI cricket, right? And we just take it for granted. no one's like, we've got a West Indian batsman who averages over 50 in the format of cricket. We're just like, yeah, he averages over 50. Well done, Shai. I just want to just say that.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that, man.
It must be the Morby, man. He's drinking Morby before the game.
Sweet and Dandy Morby. Straight from Barbados.
So my final question on sort of ODIs is, what's it like with Pollard as captain? Because obviously he's respected as one of the great captains in world cricket. How has he sort of helped your game, and what benefits have you seen him bring since he's taken over as captain?
Well, I think both him and Jason, they have a lot of knowledge when it comes to the game of cricket. And just his way of doing things, he's very instinctive. So a lot of things that happen, you're like, what's going on? But then you see it happen and it's like, whoa, you never really think about it. So it's just the way how he controls the game, the way how he controls the players, his voice in the dressing room, the way how he motivates guys. He definitely has a big part to play in our cricket. And I think that the way he's handled it so far, I think the transition for obviously when he goes, he's not the youngest guy anymore, but obviously when he goes, I think what he's brought to the dressing room now would be easier for the guys coming in to understand that culture, that lifestyle we have.
You know what, Santon? Excellent question, because that it just skipped my mind until you said that. Of course, Shai is vice captain of the ODI side. So in the same way how Pooran is being readied to take over the T20 side, I'm assuming Shai is our next ODI captain. So yes, thank you for that. Thank you for that answer. I totally forgot that you're vice captain, you know. So Shai, as obviously we speak on your excellence in ODI cricket, but it would be remiss to not talk about the red ball game, because everybody's going to be expecting us to talk about it. And after the England series, 2020 England series, you didn't go to New Zealand, and you were dropped, for want of a better word, and you have recently made a return back to the Test squad for the South Africa series. Obviously, you were part of the 13 for the just concluded series with Pakistan. Everyone answers the same questions around red ball with you, Shai. Everyone says this. They all say that. Everyone says the same thing. We can see what you're doing in LGI cricket. Everyone's waiting for it to click again in red ball cricket. But where do you stand? I think there's no point in me answering a specific question. Where do you stand on it? Because you're still young, and we certainly haven't written you off in the red ball game. But it's interesting to just find out what are your views on the red ball game. And yeah, where you're at the moment.
In an ideal world, if it was up to me, I would like a solid, let's say, 3, 4, 5, 6 first class games. And before that, some cricket, some specific stuff that I've been trying to work on leading up to those first class games, to then get a feel for the first class cricket again, to get a feel for how things are working and formulate my plans around it. Now, obviously, our schedule would not allow that because of the white ball stuff, everything. So there's no real time to focus on actual specific stuff that I would want to. But again, that's an ideal world. We don't expect that to happen. Now, as everyone saw, I can be successful in that format. And it's more so for me. It's not necessarily for other people and what they think. It's more so for me. I want to prove to myself that I can do more. I can give more to West Indies cricket. I can give more fans something to cheer about when the day comes. So, as I said, I need to find a way to mesh what I need to try to work on with the limited time that we have. Obviously, with COVID and everything in the way. So, that is going to be a challenge. It is a challenge. It has been a challenge for a while, but I think that's the next step that I need to take, to formulate the best plan to make my game plan work in the test and arena.
When when you felt not when you felt. Let me rephrase that question. When did you start to, or did you start to, at any point, did you doubt yourself in terms of the red ball game and be like, what's going on? Because I'm not. We're not elite athletes. Elite athletes, if you can't tell. But, did you get like a crisis of confidence at any point in time? Because to the natural eye, everybody can see you've got the game. Because even when you were going through the dip in form, you were still hitting like nice 20s or nice 30s. Then you were nicking off or whatever it might be. And I think that was the bigger frustration for people. If it was just a series of 10 scores under 10, then it's fine because everyone's like, well, you're out of form, whatever. It's done. But you were getting the 20s, you were getting the starts, and then getting out. So what did you feel was going on for you and your game when you were going through the downtrend, so to speak?
I honestly wish I had the answer to that question. Because yes, I have doubt in myself. I'm not gonna lie about that because it feels as though I've been doing every single thing that I need to do to work and to be successful. And as we see, it's not really working out how I want it to. So as you said, it's not to say I'm getting out for 2, 3, 0, 1, 5 over a period of time. It's always a start or something that looks like it can be something. And then I just get out. And I think that's the biggest frustration for me because it's not to say I am completely struggling at the crease and I don't have a clue where my next run is coming from. It just gets to a point, and I don't even know how many 30s and 40s I've got, but I know that they're a lot. So it's not a case of me. I don't think it's a case of me trying to get a start. It's just about trying to maintain it and go as deep as possible. Because again, I'm hungry for batting. I'm hungry for runs. So it's not a case where I get tired of batting and just throw it away. It's just one of those things. Cricket is a very unpredictable sport as well. So I kind of have to remind myself of that no matter what you do, like anything can happen. You can get a ball that creeps. You can get a ball that just spits off the pitch and gets out. So that's just the biggest frustration for me. Just getting those starts and then just getting out. Because it's like almost like finding every possible way to get out after having a start. And like I said, I don't know the answer to it. Like, I don't know what needs to be done at that particular point in time, but I'm just hoping that I'll find it soon if I'm going to be selected anytime soon for West Indies. In the 11 I'm talking about.
Well, this is so one thing that we've always thought doesn't help, and I actually think you've alluded to it, but you were referencing it more in terms of COVID. But when I've always said that, and this goes for you, Roston, Shane Dowrich, all those players who kind of debuted after 2015-16 onwards. And for you, it's doubly hard because you're in the white ball team, in the ODI team. A lot of you haven't played first class cricket in ages. And when I say first class cricket, I don't even care if it's regional cricket. I just mean something. A lot of you are going from series to series to series, and you don't get. And I always used to say this to like English fans who are like, "Oh, but what's going on for Shai?" And I'd be like, "When was the last time he played red ball cricket just in an off season?" Because the way, as you said, the way the West Indies calendar works, it doesn't even allow the international players to really. So if you look at like a Jermaine Blackwood, when Jermaine got back into the side, one of the things that helped him was he got a full first class season to play, topped the run charts, found his game again. Came back into the test team, went to England and New Zealand and played like someone who had benefited from having an entire season to just work on whatever he needed to work on. And I've always thought for you, and I called Roston, for example, it would just help to be. I don't have the answers, by the way, but so it would just help to be able to have some actual red. Do you get where I'm coming from, Santoki?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that, Shai?
I completely agree. As I said, it's something that I would love, but that's in the ideal world. No, I don't think I've played since 2017, which was before that same Pakistan series that I scored in 90 and then followed up with the 200 in England. So I think that was the last time I literally played. And I think the last innings I played, I scored a double 100 as well against Guyana, if my memory serves me correct. So
Thanks for bringing it up.
no, I just so it's like what he's trying to say. You definitely need cricket. You definitely need games under your belt. And I don't think that these one or two best games that we have before the tournament is enough. For me, especially. Like I would want, as I said, like a proper solid 4 or 5 games, first class game, just to, feel myself. And I think it would definitely benefit not just myself, but some of the other guys who haven't been playing red ball cricket as much as well.
Santoki, I already called for the agents to get in touch. I don't know what else. I don't know what else I could do at this stage. But Santoki, let's talk some CPL.
Yeah, so we've talked about Test cricket, ODI cricket, but you're an all-format player. So you're currently CPL with the newly named Barbados Royals. We talked about the adjustment between Test cricket and ODI cricket. How do you find the adjustment moving towards T20 cricket? Have you had to make massive changes in trying to make inroads into that format?
Not really, to be honest. It's just when I do come back down to the 2020 format, I need to remind myself that I don't need to hit the ball as hard as I think. But the same game plan, game style, everything still applies because you can pick the gaps, you can hit the ball through the gaps, get the same boundaries as everyone else. And I can hit a 6. It's not that I can't get a 6 hit. So just about making sure that my game plan is ready and whatever the situation requires, understand it and find a way to get the team over the line.
It's interesting because obviously ODIs you open in obviously by the time this comes out, hopefully in about 2-3 days, whatever it might be. So you probably would have played one extra game by the time this comes out. You've batted, I think, first drop at 3. You opened in the last game. As a T20 player, where's your ideal position for you as a T20 player?
Either opening or 3 because it depends on the makeup of the team. If we have some power hitters at the top, then let them go maximize the power play. But myself, I love to get a piece of the power play as well, just to get myself going. Yeah. But the earlier I bat, the better I think it is for me and then the team, because then I get a rhythm and then I can accelerate at the end if I need be. But I wouldn't say I would prefer to be at the top 3. Let me just put it that way.
You've not, again, it's probably West Indies' duty because you're an all-format player. But actually, I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever seen you in another T20 league anywhere. You've only ever played CPL, right?
Yeah. only CPL.
I don't. Do you know what? I don't even want to ask if that's even something that's ever crossed your mind, because all the people who want you in Test cricket are going to say, "What's your problem?" So I'm going to leave that question alone. I'm not even going to go there. So talking back to you.
Yeah, no. So I was just going to say, no. I wish you all the best for this upcoming CPL season until you play Guyana Amazon Warriors, and then I'm hoping you don't do any more stompings. But Mash, I think it's time for the big question.
Indeed, it is. Every guest we ever get on, Shai, we ask them the same questions all the time, no matter who they are. So it's your turn. Question number 1. You're not allowed to say Kensington Oval. What is your favourite ground to play at in the Caribbean other than your home ground?
Oh, let's see. But that's the thing. You already make it difficult by not choosing Kensington. Probably Antigua. I'd say
Why?
Antigua.
Why Antigua?
Just maybe because the atmosphere that I've had there. Because normally we play England, and they bring a very big vibe. A lot of people around. And I like to play in front of a lot of people. I just love to hear the noise and just seeing people enjoying themselves. So probably Antigua.
In terms of CPL, what have you found? What ground has had the best atmosphere for CPL specifically? Have you found?
Kensington 1 and Trinidad. I find Queen's Park Oval has a lot of people. A lot of people.
Santoki asked you that question. He expected you to say Providence, but good
Yeah,
answer.
I haven't really played too many games at Providence in CPL though, but Trinidad is definitely at the top of your list because of the atmosphere that they have there.
In terms of grounds outside of the Caribbean, what's been your favourite venue to play cricket? You're well travelled. I feel like you've played almost in every single test associate country you could have played in. But what's your favourite ground that you've played in outside of the Caribbean?
Funny enough, Bristol.
Oh.
Bristol is one. Yeah, Bristol is one of my favorite grounds. The pitch is great for batting. And I think I did pretty well at Bristol a few times. I did score some runs in a warm-up game against New Zealand in the World Cup. But for some reason, I just love batting there.
First time I've heard Bristol as a out there. and then the final question, who, and it could be in any format of the game, who has been the bowler you have found toughest to face in your career? This could be a home bowler, it could be somebody who plays for another side, etc. Who has been the bowler you found toughest to face?
Probably Jasprit Bumrah. His action alone is pretty difficult, and then his ability to move the ball both ways at will. So he was probably one of the toughest that I've faced in my career so far.
Excellent. And actually, do you know what, Santoki? I said that was the final question, but not every player or person that we've got on thus far has as many centuries as Shai has gotten, actually. So it feels remiss to not at least ask Shai what his favourite innings has been.
Yeah.
Whether test, I mean, you've got the two at Headingley, but you've got so many ODI centuries as well that it may well be one of your old. It could even be a domestic knock. So actually, I'm intrigued, Shai, because everybody's going to expect you to say, "Well, of course, it's the two Headingley centuries. What else could it be?" But out of interest, just to see, whatever the format, what has been for you your best knock?
My first century against Bangladesh in Bangladesh. That was his second test match. I think I scored 146.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
That in that innings in particular, I was struggling at the beginning. I was struggling to get the ball off. I'm struggling to find the singles, find the gaps. And we were already down 1-0 in the series. And again, it was another one of those, you just have to find a way. No matter what happens, you have to find a way to win this game. Because we were also chasing. And another highlight of that innings was when Kimo Paul came out to bat with me. We needed probably about 30, 40 runs to win still. And he was getting a bit frustrated when he was batting because he wasn't getting the ball off him as well as he normally would.
Yeah.
So I just love the way how, and I'm not really trying to toot my own horn, but the way how I helped him along the innings and the way how he responded. Because then afterwards I could see he started to be a bit more calm and was like, okay, we're going to get this done. Not try to be too frustrated with the situation. Because I don't know that this was going to happen, but I think I took Mustafa the Fizz for 20 or something like that in an over. But before that, when I talked to Kimo in the mid-pitch, I told him, don't worry about it, man. I'm going to deal with this over. We're going to get 20 off this over, and things going to be easy. So I was just trying to give him, all the confidence that I could give him, just to make him feel good at the crease. Okay, we're going to win this game.
Yeah.
And I had no idea I was going to take 20-something from him, but it just happened. Like they say, when you speak things into existence.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what happened at that particular moment. But those were the two big highlights of the innings because at the beginning, I was struggling to start. And then I hit a 6 over extra cover, and it basically got me going. And then I basically had to keep the innings together because we lost a few wickets in the middle. And then the back end was with Kimo. That's one thing I really remember from that innings. And then we got over the lane.
I think that inning sort of sums up Shai's importance to the ODI side, Mash, because I think the team total was like 256 and Shai hit 146.
I remember that series so well. Don't worry. I felt like that was a series where like almost every game was some kind of epic game. And I think it was India back to back in that series as well. I think with Bangladesh and India, or India then Bangladesh, and I felt India, like every single game of that entire stretch was some kind of epic game. that was a must watch. So yeah. Shai, you know, that kind of brings things to an end. I know obviously this is your off day from proceedings at the moment in CPL, so we do want you to actually go and relax ahead of the upcoming games. But I just wanted to say thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been much appreciated. I appreciate your honesty as well with regards. You didn't duck any of the questions whatsoever. And as much as you said, if I am selected, we are expecting to see you in the Sri Lanka series in the Red Bull game. So we aren't the selectors, but Santoki and I are expecting to see you in the 11 come Sri Lanka. So all the best for that Test series when that comes up after the World Cup. But Santoki, any last words?
Yeah, no, agree. Absolute pleasure, Shai. Thank you for taking some time out and obviously being so honest with your answers. And genuinely, me and Mash hope to see you very soon in the Test arena where we're sure that you'll thrive again.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure. I enjoyed it with you guys.
Brilliant. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been episode 49 of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. Thank you and good.
We rule the